on it. Taste of a Good Life. For the past 7 weeks, we have been looking at pieces of the good life, descriptions of the good life. I think we would all agree that we look forward to. Here's some of the things we've talked about: freedom, fruitfulness, having a good name, having an impact in this world, joy, success, meaningful relationships. We looked at that one last week. These are all aspects of life that we long for. In addition to exploring these tastes of the good life, we looked at practices that will unpack these aspects of the good life. And so we're going to continue that on this next to the last week of the series. But here's the piece of the good life we're going to focus on this morning. It's a sense of destiny or sense of calling. Your destiny is that part that you play in this world that is uniquely yours, that eventually will leave a legacy. Back in the 1940s and 50s, there was a psychologist named Abraham Maslow who came up with what he called his hierarchy of needs. It was a pyramid, described from the bottom to the top, the things that human beings need. At the very bottom is you need air and you need food and the kind of basics to live. But at the very top, he described the prime human need to be what he called self-actualization. Now, it was a very fancy word to describe this sense of destiny, or that I have a place in this world, that I mean something in this world. I'm moving towards something in this world. Recently, I've discovered that this is one of the hottest topics that human beings want. I want to know what my calling is. I want to know what my destiny is. The Apostle Paul intimated this when he wrote this to the Philippians. He said, let me go back to what Abraham Maslow said. I'm sorry, I skipped this. And Maslow said this: what a person can be, they must be. All right? What they can be, they must be. Then what Paul went on to say: I press on toward this goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. You all want to know why you're here. Are you unique? Yes. What are you supposed to be doing in this world? You don't know. Some of you know better than others. We're going to figure that out. We're not going to figure out your calling. We're going to figure out how to figure out your calling. We're going to do this in a very different way. I'm not preaching. This is the last time right now that I'm actually going to look at you. All right? I'm not even going to talk to you anymore, because I'm going to talk to one person. This is risky. I'm going to do a live counseling appointment on stage. All right? And you get to watch this. This, in other words, it's as if I do this from time to time. I'll sit down with somebody in my office over a cup of coffee or chat because they want to talk about their destiny or talk about their calling. You're going to watch that live, and the person who is willing to subject themselves to this, I want you to meet this morning. You may have met her, Emily Sutherland. Would you welcome her this morning? All right, Emily, you ready for this?
I am.
Okay. Now, we're not going to talk to them anymore. It's just you and me.
Good.
We just pretend that nobody else is watching, okay? All right. Let's just talk briefly about this calling thing. You wouldn't have agreed to do this had this not been something that interests you. Can you talk about that?
Yes. I would say I've always done what I felt I should be doing at the time, but as life unfolds, you think, okay, am I really doing that? Am I really where God wants me to be? Am I missing something?
Right.
You know, things don't look like I thought maybe they would look at this stage of life, and I'm going to be an empty nester in 2 or 3 years, and like what happens? Like, is it just going to go downhill from here?
Well, it isn't. Okay, so let me. But you're actually at one of those real key points where these questions are like this. You're going through a life transition. Mm-hmm. Soon going to be empty nester, right? How old are you, by the way?
47 this June, 46 right now.
Usually, many people from the ages 40 to 45 to 40, that's when these questions are really hot. I mean, every age, but it's really hot. But before we get into you, let me talk about, in general, some words that I want to make sure that we understand. 6 words, and the first one is job. You have a job, right?
I do.
What is your job?
That's a funny question.
As best you understand it.
Yes. I have never had a job description at the place of employment where I am. I work for Gaither Music Company, and basically, and this has been a positive and overwhelming at times, but
Okay.
they basically utilize whatever you're good at to just throw into the hat there, and even some things that I wasn't good at that I had to become good at. And so I am a writer for the company. I'm in the marketing of the company. I do all the social media and web presence for the company. And I did all that from home for a number of years, which I really liked because I could manage family and home and work at the same time. And then I began commuting a couple years ago because Mr. Gaither, our spearhead, his assistant retired, and he needed me on site to represent him and to help him on a daily basis.
So
assistant, writer, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you do a lot. And you know this is not your calling, right? Now,
yeah.
Because job is not calling.
Right.
Now, job can play into your calling, right? But when we start to see our job as our calling, that can get confusing.
Yes.
It can be a part of it.
Right.
All right.
That's
As
good.
can our career. Now, a career is a succession of jobs over a period of time that begins to define us in more general terms. Would you be able to describe, do you have a career?
My career would be writing.
Writing, okay. Your job right now is doing a lot of things, including writing, but you're a journalist, more or less.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, a career is not a calling.
Okay.
Again, and this is why this is important,
Yeah, it
because a
is.
career can play into your calling as jobs can play into your calling, but a career is too small a thing to call your calling. Okay? Now, I want to say that careers and jobs are important. God says, Paul said to the Colossians, says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men. So we believe that to be true. Let me talk about another word, and I'll be interested to see your reaction to this. Role. You play several roles in this world. Let's describe give me some of the roles you play.
Wife,
Okay, you're a wife,
mom,
you're a mom,
sister,
you're a sister,
daughter,
okay, daughter, you're a
friend, worship leader.
worship leader, neighbor. You've got,
Neighbor, yeah.
now, this is really hard. Your role is not your calling.
This is hard.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, let's be real specific for moms. When a mom thinks that her calling is to be a mom, what happens when you go through empty nesting?
You don't have a calling anymore.
That's what a lot of people think, and you end up in a crisis. Or if somebody, a guy works in construction and he gets laid off, and he thought his calling was construction, but now he has. All of a sudden, it's not just I don't have a job. It's not just I don't have a career. It's not just I don't have a role. I don't even know who I am in this world. You see why this is important? So now, a lot of people will go through, well, let me add one more here because this can get confused. You know what an avocation is? All right. An avocation is essentially a hobby or something that you do outside, something that gives you life, something that gives you joy. Do you have an avocation or more than one?
Yeah.
What are they?
I would say writing also is that. You know,
Running?
I do it writing.
Writing, okay.
I do both, you know, just for fun. But then gardening and I don't know, just making my home beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Does that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing that gives you life, that gives you joy. That's not your job, not your career, not your role. It's something that enlivens you.
Yeah.
Does that make
Music
sense?
as well, probably.
Music?
Yeah.
And I know you well enough to know music has to be a part of that too. Now, most people go through their lives understanding their job, their career, their role, and the avocation, and that's all they know. And that's perfectly fine. You can make your way through life with those 4 things and understand it, but still have a sense of emptiness because you haven't figured out yet this one. And this is huge. And let me tell you why this is huge. This is what a calling is. It's an invitation. It's a beckoning. It's a summons. Now, me doing this, you know very well that it's not a human being that issues a calling. Mm-hmm. It's God himself. This is why you right now are probably experiencing this level of angst, because you know what that is. Mm-hmm. You're very competent. You've been competent in what you do. You're a good writer. You're a good singer. You're a great mom. You're a great wife. Your family would say that. You know what gives you life. Mm-hmm. You want to know what this is, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been at Grace now?
A year.
A year. You've probably heard me say this a dozen times. You are God's masterpiece, right? Mm-hmm. Created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for you to do. Before you were born, God looked at you before you were born and said, I like her. I like her a lot. And I'm going to make her in a certain way that she's going to have some specific things to do in this world that are not only going to change the world, but going to change her. I have a calling for her. That's what we want to find. Now, I'm going to throw one other word into it, and I'm introducing this to you right now. No one else is listening, so this is just between me and you. But I'm going to introduce one other word that I'm kind of rolling this out, Emily, to test mark it a little bit. I think there's one other word we need to explore, and that's destiny. Now, a destiny is your final calling. All right? Mm-hmm. Destiny is the accumulation of all your callings until you get to be about my age, when you get to be in your late 50s, your early 60s, and even approaching 70. And about that 10-year span, now your calling starts to feel and look like a destiny. Now, you're not there yet, but you can actually see it on the horizon. And this is also, when you get into your mid-40s, you're starting to realize you're getting to the point now, what is my ultimate destiny? It is your ultimate calling. Bobby Clinton wrote a book. You're a leader, so you might find this interesting. It's called The Making of a Leader. And in the book, he said, there comes a point in our life, instead of using the word destiny, he uses the word convergence. He said, everything comes together at this point, and you look at it and you go, all these years, it's all coming together. He said, when you hit this convergence or you hit this destiny, you actually start to relax and you start to rest in it. You're not there yet. I'm, for the first time in my life, starting to taste a little bit of this, right? That's what we're shooting for. But for now, we're not going to focus on destiny. We're going to focus on calling. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, let me give you an illustration. All we're going to do, we're not going to walk out of here today with you having figured out your calling, so I'm sorry. But I'm going to give you enough of a tool that you can sit down and process this and have a better idea. And I'm going to use and illustrate. This is a quilt. This is actually my daughter's quilt.
Cool.
Okay? These were T-shirts. This is called a T-shirt quilt. She made this in 2010. She had just graduated from Indiana University, and this described her life in 2010. She was in theater. Here was another theater performance she was in. She was in Delta Gamma at Indiana University. I have no idea what that was. Here is another Delta Gamma thing. And if you looked at this, we could come up with a composite of my daughter's life in 2010. We could say, if you look at this, there's going to be something about theater in her life, or and there's something about music over here, and you could get a picture. But we would have described her calling, so to speak, in 2010, but it's 2016. And if we looked at Lucy's life right now, this is only a picture of the past, because since then, she moved to Cincinnati and worked for General Mills in sales. She moved to Chicago, and now she's working on her MBA at Northwestern University, and she got married. She's added so many patches to this that now in May of 2016, her calling is very different now than it was then. Does that make sense? So, what we want to do for you, and I gave you a little example of this, we are going to construct your calling quilt as much as we know, and we're going to add patches in the few moments we have. By the way, it's just a side note. This would normally take a lot longer than a half hour, so we're not going to be able to touch on everything I would like to touch on, but hopefully give you enough. So let's start. You can write this on your quilt. I'll write this up here, and I'm just going to be very cryptic about it. Do you have enough room to write?
I'll make it work.
All right, here we go. So how old are you, did you say?
I'm 46.
46 years. Let's put you're 46 years old. You're married. How long you been married?
26 years.
26 years. You have how many kids?
2.
2 kids. Let's put this right here, this next one. This is who you are. How close are you to empty nesting?
Probably 2 years away.
Okay, so 2 years to empty nesting. And you've talked to enough people who've gone through empty nesting to know that's a joy and a trauma all at the same time. It's going to reshape you, and you need to understand that as a part of your life. Let's go back now and cover some of the, asked you to do an exercise where you look at the highs and lows of your life. I'm only going to pick out a few. Let's start with the highs.
Okay.
Like, what are the things that you'll never forget that happened to you? Maybe your journey with Jesus Christ, maybe some relationships, maybe some mentors. Can you name a few?
Yes. I first trusted Jesus and understood enough to give him my life at age 5. But then going through church and Christian schools over the years, I don't know, I understood, I saw the good and the bad side of church, and I think in my 20s I really came to know him, like who he really is,
Okay.
And it was through highs and lows. So really great influences in my life, the love of family and good mentors, a boss that was real, and
Okay.
then there were some hurts, and I don't know if you want to know.
Well,
about
so
that.
on one hand, you had positive role models, your faith, you had positive role models, but something happened in your 20s where all of a sudden you need to decide whether this was real or not.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so was it a crisis of faith?
It was, yes, because I was seeing terrible behavior by people who were leading as Christians,
Okay.
So I just remember sitting in my office, and I was working in an environment filled with people who weren't, I don't think, genuine. I had never felt their love for Jesus or their love for me or anybody else. It was all competitive and perfectionistic. So I remember sitting at my desk and just, it was almost, I don't ever say God said this, but
Yeah.
I felt that he was saying, that's not me.
Okay.
And so I just had to begin to separate the behavior of people from who he really was.
Okay, so don't miss this, because this is a life-shaping event. It shapes how you
Big
see
time.
the world, right?
Yeah.
To the glasses. I'm not sure how to. I'm just going to write this, and you can put it. I'm going to say crisis of faith.
Yes.
In your 20s. You and I both know what you're talking about
Right.
there. That has shaped probably how you see the world and how you understand
Big
God.
time.
You probably have a truth meter. You can smell something that doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know when something, okay. That's important too, because we'll come back. That may play into some spiritual gifting too. You have some discernment
Yeah.
gifts? Do you
Yeah.
have? Okay. Was that a low point?
It's interesting because, yes, because everything I knew was gone. Other than my relationship with my husband at that time, and we had a new baby, and my family relationship, we loved each other, but all of the stuff that I had been taught needed to be reevaluated.
Okay. So it was a huge crisis
Big
of faith.
time.
This is
Big
not
time.
a little thing.
But there was freedom at the same time.
Okay. Something happened that kicked you into a different gear.
Yeah.
Any other low points that were shaping?
Right.
Or high points?
Probably very shaping in a positive way has been the place I work is run by people who are very human, but they do a lot of things right. And when I was in that crisis of faith, I was just kind of in the midst of that. It was probably late 20s. I started working for Bill and Gloria, and they weren't afraid to talk about what's real, what's not, and that was very shaping for me to be around very human, normal, broken people who got it.
Well, it's interesting. Well, and you and I have talked about this. I've just had the privilege over the last couple of years of spending some time with Bill, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'll just put Gaithers up here because
yeah, truly.
They're like real.
They're like my family in many ways, yeah.
Okay. Now, again, don't underestimate when God brings some people into our lives that have a profound impact. Sometimes we want to start modeling that. We don't even see it happening. We start acting like them, right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that starts shape.
It could be really scary.
I'm sorry?
That could be really scary.
Yeah, that could be scary. And it could be good, could be bad. Okay, any other highs or lows? I don't want to belabor this. No,
I don't want to go into detail, too much detail. I wrote some notes just so that I wouldn't forget my highs and lows.
Yeah.
I've for a few years felt very discouraged with my parenting, and that was hard. And then we got a diagnosis for my son he was diagnosed with Aspergers, and that was a very personal journey, and not a lot of people were privy to it. But it was almost a high point when we got a diagnosis because we understood that it wasn't that we were not doing something right, that we weren't connecting, that we just needed to speak a different language a little bit. And so that was very shaping for our family in a good way, because I think it helped us understand that there are so many ways that people think and interact with the world that we never even knew. And it was good. It was, but very challenging because I felt like I didn't know how to parent.
Yeah. So it does two things. It reshapes you internally. Your family is different. It'll never be the same again, in a good way.
Very much so, yeah.
But also, now you have a different set of lenses to look at people in this world.
Totally. Yeah. That was shaping.
So that's shaping. So I'm going to put I'll put your son, but I'll put an arrow. And in other words, there was some struggle you had, but some learnings, and I'll put a pair of glasses here. It changed the way you view the world. Do you see what happens when you start putting these together? I'm not trying to weave this together, but the influences, your crisis of faith, what's happened with your son, these are all informative of your calling in this world. All right. Now, at some other point, I would suggest you go through these highs and lows and fill in a few more so that you can stand back and look at it, all right, and get a picture. But let's shift to a whole other focus. Let's talk about the way God wired you. All right? I ask you to do the Enneagram.
Yes.
You've probably done Myers-Briggs and other tests. Had you ever done the Enneagram before?
I did it once, and I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with the test to know that you could roll over the question mark and get the full explanation. Yeah. So I was just choosing between words, two words, but the results were surprisingly similar the second time I took it.
So let's talk about this. The Enneagram basically says there are 9 core temperament or personality styles. You happen to be a 9. Okay? Let me read this to you. See if this resonates. You value peace and harmony more than anything else. You're nodding. You have an intuitive sense for how things fit together. You want to make the world a place that's harmonious and free of conflict. Now, again, add that to... Do you see where I'm going with this? You're probably easygoing. I can see that. Yeah. You can let people and events evolve and unfold in their own way and in their own time. Your calm presence is reassuring to others.
Oh.
You're diplomatic.
Yeah.
So you can see the truth in all sides of an issue and work effectively towards reconciliation when conflict is present. See, when Emily's in the room, Emily becomes a point at which everyone else can settle down. When Emily's in the room, you tend to be that kind of person that brings that sense of peace. Where other people are agitators, other people are vision, you're like, come here. All right? On the other hand, you can become too settled and neglect to take action.
Totally.
Okay? You can feel that your own actions are not important in the larger scheme of things and therefore resign yourself to inaction.
Absolutely.
Okay. Your idealism helps you to take action and work toward change so that things can be improved rather than resigning yourself to the way things are. That's when you're at your best.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're at your worst, you fall back and you let things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. This is who you are. This makes sense?
100%.
Okay, and other people would say this about you?
I believe so. If they were in the room, they would probably say that.
Yeah. However, no one's in the room right
No,
now,
right.
so it doesn't.
I don't know. I
it's-
haven't talked to them.
It's just you and me. Y'all be quiet out there. Be quiet. Let's keep going. I asked you to do a spiritual gifts test
You did.
before you got here.
was
What
interesting.
are your spirit? I asked you to, whatever the test told you your top 3 gifts are, and then I asked you to talk to people to see if they affirmed it, what they think about that. So your
Yes.
spiritual gifts are.
My actual test came out that wisdom was the number 1.
Stop. Does that surprise me? No. That doesn't surprise me at all.
It delighted me. I was like, really? Oh, okay. Good. Faith was my second one.
Again.
Again, I was like, wow, okay, good. And hospitality came up 3, which is so funny because I used to get so stressed out. And that's been an area of growth for me because I really wanted to work on that. I wanted to be able to have people in my home without getting all blah, and perfectionistic. And so I guess it must be working because that came up.
You know what hospitality is at its core? It's come here and I want you to feel comfortable. Hospitality is not necessarily about having somebody in your room and have doilies and iced tea.
Well, that's good.
Okay? That's not hospitality.
Yeah.
Hospitality is, how can I make you feel comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
How can I, when I'm with you, can I make your life feel better than it is right now? How can I speak faith and bring you the wisdom that I have in my core? You're not a person who's going to teach and you're not going to cast vision, but you get alongside somebody, and you express your deep faith in God, which came out of crisis, that you've learned from other people, and with this calming personality. Do other people agree with these? When you asked them, did they agree with these?
I think so.
Okay. These
Let
spiritual
me-
gifts.
There was one, I asked 3 friends. One said faith, mercy, and hospitality.
Uh-huh.
The other said hospitality and wisdom, and they didn't give me a third one. And my husband, who knows me well, said faith, wisdom, and hospitality, which was pretty on. Yeah. So it seems,
Let me stop. There are more I'm going to ask you. Let me stop. How are you feeling right now? Just gut. give me-
interesting. I'm not good at telling how I feel. Probably encouraged, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I have a purpose.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit further. You know the 6 broken places. It's the way we define God's mission in this world. People are separated from God. People are isolated from one another. There's loneliness. People are in pain, mind, body, spirit. People hate each other. The world is in decay. And did I mention injustice? There are vast swaths of injustice. I asked you coming into this to think about the 6 broken places. And is there one of them that stands out and you go, that one makes my blood boil, that makes me uncomfortable, that's the one that bothers me the most? Which one?
Separation from God.
Okay, talk about that. What is it that it's upsetting about that?
I believe that a lot of people misunderstand him because of the way he is represented by people. And I feel like that would be the reason for so many of the other things, the other broken places, because they don't understand God's power and his ability
Mm-hmm.
to heal.
You don't want them to have what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to head this off and say, no, 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 no. Let me, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the things that move us come directly out of our experiences. You'd rather them meet people like the Gaithers who can show them truth and life and faith in a way that's real.
Mm-hmm.
One last question, and then we'll try to pull this together. Is there anything unusual happening right now in your life other than the approach to empty nesting?
Yeah, there are changes happening work-wise, and so I don't know how long the company's going to be going, or what my role is going to look like, or what will happen after this.
Okay, so there are changes on the horizon.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of agitation in your soul.
Sure. I mean,
Okay.
I honestly do trust God. I just don't know if I should be preparing somehow, or trying to figure out, do I need to start freelancing, or just because the practical issue is that we need a job, and
Yeah,
that's-
you need this,
yeah,
and there's no getting around that. You need the job, you need the
Sure.
income, but this is what your heart is beating. How can I do something here that fits more like this, that where I can exercise my gifts, I can go after the things that agitate me the most, and do that within my personality. All right. Again, I'm not helping you discover your calling, but I'm giving you this. This is your quilt to date. This is who you are, plus a few other things that we didn't accumulate. This is who you are. What you need to do is take this with some of your best friends, with your husband, and sit down and say, all right, based on this, what do you think I should be doing with my life? And let me ask you, I'm going to take a risk. Has anything hit you go, I need to pay attention to that?
yeah. I think seeing it in one place, and I don't know what this will look like, but I definitely probably need to write about some of these experiences, because I think maybe it could be helpful. I
It
hope.
will be, and can I also say this to you? Do not miss the impact you have on other people. Your desire is to write, and you're a very good writer. You like to do that. But my encouragement is don't do that to the exclusion of allowing this world to be close to Emily Sutherland. Okay?
It's good.
Let people be close to you, whether that's in mentoring or pulling people in, because you have a powerful gift mix here with a unique personality and experiences that people need to know. So yes, write about it. And maybe that's your calling, I don't know. But also do not miss the opportunity to impact people up close.
It's good.
Okay? There you go. Good start, huh?
Really good start. I think that 9, I don't know, it's funny, because it's like I'm half introvert, half extrovert. And that introvert really came out when I was working at home. I liked it. I didn't go out for days, and it was fine with me. And being with people, though, is fueling a lot of growth, and it's something that maybe I wouldn't choose, but it's good. And so what you're saying resounds for sure.
Yeah, your calling needs to be both and. All right? You need to make sure that you're not exclusively in and you're not exclusively out, because you get refueled when you're alone, but you also have deep impact on people. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good.
There you go. Would you thank Emily?
Thanks.